if you pay them, Facebook will run any political ad you want, even if it's a lie. And they'll even help you micro-target those lies to their users for maximum effect. Under this twisted logic, if Facebook were around in the 1930s, it would have allowed Hitler to post 30-second ads on his solution to the Jewish problem. All this hate and violence is being facilitated by a handful of internet companies that amount to the greatest propaganda machine in history.
Exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it.
Circle back, circle back. I hate to disappoint you, but we will venture to circle back with all of you.
Think cocaine or not, what do you think?
This is such a good question. I have not had the opportunity to dig into that. I'll circle back.
It was a massive dump. To this day, everyone's trying to figure out where did it come from.
I'm not aware of anything, but we'll circle back.
Zuckerberg, tell me about Centra. What is the Facebook internal tool called Centra?
Senator, I'm not aware of any tool with that name.
Well, let me see if this refreshes your memory. There's a demonstrative now over my shoulder. Centra is a tool that Facebook uses to track its users, not just on Facebook, but across the entire internet. Centra tracks different profiles that a user visits, their message recipients, their linked accounts, the pages they visit around the web that have Facebook buttons. Centra also uses behavioral data to monitor users' accounts, even if those accounts are registered under a different name. And you can see a shot here, a screenshot provided to us of the Centra platform. We blocked out the user's name in the interest of privacy, although you can see this individual's birth date and age, when they first started using Facebook, their last login, as well as all manner of trackings. How many different devices have they used to access Facebook? How many different accounts are associated with their name? What accounts have they visited? What photos have they tagged? And on and on and on.
Facebook is paying them for it. Here is how it works.
Social media privacy and the use and abuse of data. Although not unprecedented, this is a unique hearing. I now turn to you, so proceed, sir.
Chairman Grassley, Chairman Thune, Ranking Member Feinstein, and Ranking Member Nelson, and members of the committee. We face a number of important issues around privacy, safety, and democracy. My top priority has always been fake news, foreign interference in elections, and hate speech, as well as misusing data, developers, and data privacy.
That should not be possible.
I believe deeply in what we're doing. Building community and bringing the world closer together will never take priority over that as long as I'm running Facebook. And I know we'll look back and view terrorist propaganda, giving more people a voice, as a positive force in the world. Thank you for having me here today, and I'm ready to take your questions.
Automated bots that spread disinformation, what are you doing in that regard?
One of my greatest regrets in running the company is that we were slow to do a number of more traditional cyber attacks of other elections around the world. So we've deployed new AI tools to interfere in elections or spread misinformation. And we need to invest in keeping on getting better at this too. We're trying to hack into them, contribute significant harm, and we're committed to doing that.
So this concludes today's hearing. The hearing is adjourned.
They applied extreme pressure to silence or censor fake news, which was just a fancy way of saying news that they don't like.
We did our part to secure the integrity of the election. And then, on January 6th, President Trump gave a speech rejecting the results and calling on people to fight. Now, I believe that the former president should be responsible for his words.
To peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
There's clear evidence of coordination between Twitter, Google, and Facebook.
Speaking moistly on them.
For years, we've heard that CNN is the most trusted name in news, but a CNN director is on tape telling us that their propaganda.
COVID, gangbusters with ratings. COVID, gangbusters with ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side. Let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher.
It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in.
Sad news doesn't do well with ratings, Like, if you can get someone impassioned, that does really well with ratings. Sad news, back to back to back, doesn't do really well unless it affects them directly. COVID, gangbusters with ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side, which I have a major problem with, that we're tallying how many people die every day. Because I've even looked at it and be like, let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. And I'm like, what am I rallying for? That's a problem. Yeah. We're doing that, like this special red phone ring. Yeah. And they pick it up, and it's like the head of the network being like, there's nothing that you're doing right now that makes me want to stick. Put the numbers back up, because that's the most enticing thing that we had. So put it back up. So like things like that are constantly talked about.
I mean, there's no such thing as unbiased news, just like this. Any reporter on CNN, what they're actually doing is they're telling the person what to say. It's always like leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. And the only people that we will let on the air, for the most part, are people that have a proven track record of taking the bait. We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So that's I think that's probably it.
Look what we did. We got Trump back. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out.
Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of fear, climate?
Yeah, fear sells. Fear sells. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
Sir, I watch your show, and I haven't heard anything about Charlie Chester or anything like that. Do you have a comment on that? Does the bat phone ring? Do you answer?
You get a phone call, like the bat phone rings in the back.
Or does Jeff Zucker tell you how to report, sir? You know we expose everybody, right? Comment, sir? So there we have it, Anderson Cooper.
Facebook bent to that pressure and created a fact-checker network with godlike powers over all of us.
It is, of course, in the operations of the company, if someone reports something, sometimes necessary for people at the company to go review and understand the context around what is happening when someone reports something. So this is fairly frequent and is a matter of course. We do have security systems that can detect anomalous patterns to flag, but we should follow up in more detail on what you're interested in, and that I'd be happy to follow up.
Ban hate. So obviously they have to define hate, and they say hatred means the emotion that involves detestation or vilification, and that is stronger than dislike or disdain. I think it's really weird to pass criminal laws about emotions. I think it's an attempt to play God, to tell people how they're supposed to feel and supposed to think. You can't command someone to feel a certain way. You can't pass a law commanding love or banning hate. And the audacity to think that you can, that arrogance, I'm guessing that will actually create more hate.
Now, this government seeks to extend its reach, broaden its tentacles into the internet. Let me quote, "Hear, hear," says the Liberal member across the way. And every once in a while, the veil falls and they reveal their true selves. I say they want to extend their tentacles into the internet, and one of the most prominent Liberal MPs says, "Hear, hear." Thank him, Madam Chair, when you have a chance, for his temporary and accidental honesty.
Will the Prime Minister tell us how long it will be before every aspect of Canadian life must conform to his Liberal vision of Canadian society?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The tinfoil hats on the other side of the aisle are really quite spectacular.
Oh.
Of admiration I actually have for China. Because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around.
First, I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place. And this is actually a concern that I have and that I try to root out in the company, is making sure that we don't have any bias. And I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
You'll delete all of it. With the MAGA hat, I'm gonna delete it for terrorism. Yeah.
Here is how Facebook fact-checking works. Whenever we say anything they disagree with, these fact-checkers write a vicious partisan hit piece. Then they harass us and our audience by slapping hazardous warning labels on what we have posted. Many times, those labels say missing context or disputed. Yes, thanks, Facebook. Every political argument in America is disputed.
Does voter fraud exist?
I don't know for certain.
Are you an expert in voter fraud?
No, I'm not.
Well, why then is Twitter right now putting purported warnings on virtually any statement about voter fraud?
We're simply linking to a broader conversation so that people have more information.
No, you're not. You put up a page that says, quote, voter fraud of any kind is exceedingly rare in the United States. That's not linking to a broader conversation. That's taking a disputed policy position, and you're a publisher when you're doing that. You're entitled to take a policy position, but you don't get to pretend you're not a publisher and get a special benefit under Section 230 as a result.
That link is pointing to a broader conversation with tweets from publishers and people all around the country.
Mr. Dorsey, would the following statement violate Twitter's policies? Quote, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud.
I imagine that we would label it so that people can have more context in reading.
How about this quote? Voter fraud is particularly possible where, quote, third-party organizations, candidates, and political party activists are involved in, quote, handling absentee ballots. Would you flag that as potentially misleading?
I don't know the specifics of how we might enforce that, but I imagine a lot of these would have a label pointing people to a bigger conversation.
Well, you're right. You would label them because you've taken the political position right now that voter fraud doesn't exist.
So who are these hack checkers? Lead Stories is run by a former CNN employee of 26 years who makes a living cannibalizing and slandering conservative content and creators. His website has published disputed fake news stories. Here is an important question. Who funds Lead Stories? According to their own masthead, Lead Stories is funded by Facebook and Google, along with ByteDance. And what is ByteDance? It's a Beijing-based company that owns the TikTok spyware app. Our own Justice Department says the company is a national security threat and compromised by the Communist Party of China. Facebook, then, is paying for fact-checkers funded by an arm of the Communist Party of China to censor my content here in America. The Communist Party of China has more say over my content than the First Amendment. This is insanity. It's un-American. It's dangerous. And it needs to stop.
Twitter's position is essentially voter fraud does not exist. Are you aware that just 2 weeks ago in the state of Texas, a woman was charged with 134 counts of election fraud? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that.
If I tweeted that statement with a link to the indictment, would you put a warning on it that says, well, the Democratic Party position right now is voter fraud doesn't exist?
I don't think it's useful to get into hypotheticals, but I don't believe so.
You don't believe so? Well, we're going to test that because I'm going to tweet that and we'll see what you put on.
Luigi Warren, and we don't really even know his name until a couple of days ago. Luigi Warren has a Twitter account, actually, and he tweeted the other day that, hey, guess what? Because I'm one of the founders of the mRNA vaccine technology, and I'm one of the co-founders of Moderna that helped to build Moderna, I can actually attest to the fact that, yes, the vaccine shedding of the spike protein is real. It actually does occur. Now, it occurs he says it occurs in smaller amounts that is most likely not harmful or going to cause disease to other people. But it actually is real and it does occur. So because he posted that tweet on Twitter, guess what? The Twitter police came and suspended his account. They said fake news. Now he's appealing back though. He's not backing down, and he says this with the appeal. He says, just appealed as follows. The tweet you locked me out for is correct. I am the inventor of the technology of which Moderna was founded. Look it up. I think I know what I'm talking about. And he says, again, he's continuing to go through more bogus lockdowns for posting absolutely correct statements on Twitter.
Everyday, ordinary Canadians should be allowed their own megaphone, and the only limit on how loud and how vast their voices are heard should be whether people choose to listen to them. That is the kind of liberty that we should extend to the Canadian people. And in the marketplace of ideas, there is no role for state coercion and intimidation. There is no role for nameless, faceless government bureaucrats to decide who is heard and who is not. The everyday Canadian people should have the freedom to do that for themselves.
You should always feel free to express yourself in whatever format, manifestation feels right. You do intend to do a full retro, as I said in my note. It is going to take some time. And then the other thing, just to close out a little bit, we are focused on one account right now, but this is going to be much bigger than just one account, and it's going to go on for much longer than just this day, this week, the next few weeks. It's going to go on beyond the inauguration. We have to expect that. We have to be ready for that. So the focus is certainly on this account and how it ties to real world violence.
Today he announced he's suing Facebook, Twitter, and Google, along with their respective CEOs, claiming he's been wrongfully censored.
And before you this morning to announce a very important and very beautiful, I think, development for our freedom and our freedom of speech. We're demanding an end to the shadow banning, a stop to the silencing, and a stop to the blacklisting, banishing, and canceling that you know so well. Our case will prove this censorship is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and it's completely un-American. We are asking the court to impose punitive damages on these social media giants. We're going to hold big tech very accountable, filing as the lead class representative a major class action lawsuit against the big tech giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, as well as their CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey. Three real nice guys.